All right, welcome. My name is Hannah Swager, Manager of Internships with the Exchange, Marian University's Career Office. And today we have Ryan Kreicker, former English education major and current Director of IT and Internet Marketing at Hensley Legal Group. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
I wanted to start off by just asking you to tell us a little bit about you and what your time at Marian looked like.
It was a really interesting time for both me and Marion. It was the fall of 1998. My mom is a Marion grad. My dad dated her while she was there. He went to Indiana State, but throughout the whole tour, they talked about all like, oh, we did this over here, we did this over there, and I was like, I do not want to come here, and this is going to be so weird. But ultimately, it ended up being the best fit for me. In high school, I was a pretty shy person. I'm quite the opposite now, and Marion had a big, impact on that. I went to Decatur Central on the southwest side of Indianapolis. Did that class, school was about 1,200 people, so, big compared to Marion. I think when I started at Marion, there were maybe 400 people on campus. So everybody knew everything about you, where you are, and I think for me being shy, I just made it up to myself. I said, if you do one thing, say hello and smile to every person you see. And so, after about 3 days of Marion, it's the same faces you keep seeing again and again and again. And it really just was a perfect environment for me to grow because everybody knew who you were, and you could build those relationships so easily. Had I gone to a bigger school, I was looking at going to West Virginia Jesuit or IU, and it was just, I probably would have been swallowed and never left my room. And so it really was the perfect fit for me.
Awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the process was like choosing your major area of study?
So when I originally, I had three things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to teach journalism, and I wanted to be a computer programmer. Um, my math skills are not the best, so I looked at Dayton, and I was going to have to take a year of math that uncredited to go there. So that was not an option for me because I'm also a planner. So I want to be done and move on and keep my life moving forward. So that was apologize for phone ringing. Um, so it came down to West Virginia Desert. I'm tall. I'm 6'4". I was going to be too tall to fly on the space shuttle. My vision is also bad, so I could have been in the astronaut program, but I wanted to go to space, so that was also out for me. And also, West Virginia Jesuit was not a great fit for me. It had the smallness of Marion, but it was just kind of in the middle of a valley with nothing really around it, and was too uncomfortable. So, believe it or not, Marion was not my first choice. It ended up being where I ended up, but it was a passion that I had. I wanted to be, I wanted to work with kids and educate. My dad's been a teacher, or was a teacher for 39 years. So I actually started as an elementary education major that's what my dad did. And shortly, I think my first class, we were making puffy clouds out of cotton balls and construction paper. My very first class, my very first day, and I left the class and immediately went to my counselor and switched everything. I switched to secondary education with English because I was like, okay, elementary education is out for me. What am I going to do? I still want to teach, but if I hate teaching and I don't like it, what am I going to do? So I went with English because I've always had a passion for reading and writing, and I love journalism in high school. I was involved in the yearbook and the newspaper, and I thought, man, this would be a lot of fun to do. So I switched to English and then a secondary education licensure and a communications minor.
That's awesome. I appreciate the detail about your first day in the classroom, discovering that's not for you.
Ah.
That's such an honest thing, and that's just as valuable as learning that something is your passion, 100%.
And I will tell you, that's what I liked about Marion's at the time, and I'm sure they're still doing it with their education program. But I mean, we were in the classrooms that first year. Like they wanted to make it very clear, this is what it's going to be like. I'd heard from other, peers that weren't at Marian education programs where they weren't in the classroom until their senior years. And man, that's a little bit late. If you hate it, wow, that's bad. That's rough. Yeah.
Yeah, our education students are in the classroom very early, and I think that that's a real asset to that program. My supervisor, Jenny, in our office, that's how she discovered she did not want to be an elementary teacher as well. Anyway, and she talks about that, like that's such
It's
a valuable way to explore things is to just seek out those opportunities, just try it out, and it just starts to inform your experience, whether that's the right path for you or you want to move in a different direction. So that's
And, it's,
awesome.
and also too, I think my advisor was Dr. Asatura. I'm not sure if she's even still there, but
Mhm.
you talked about a phenomenal person who was just very real. She taught. Her education background was all over the place. She taught some of the roughest schools, some of the best schools, and I think she was just a great sounding board for everything we were going to experience. And when you had issues, I think that was the real power of Marion is, being at a small school like that, we had one-on-one personal conversations about, everything we were going through. So that was, just really helps you get through, tough spots.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what your career looked like and what your career path has looked like since graduation? Where did you start out?
Wow. So I finished I finished in 4 years, but I had to take 21 plus credit hours every semester to get out in 4 years. Which was a goal for me. It's the kind of person I am. If I have free time, I tend to waste it. But if I have no time, I do everything, and it's just really a good fit for me. So it really worked well for me to just overload myself with all the classes and credit hours. But I graduated in 4 years with. I actually even added middle school licensure at the end there. I think to finish my middle school licensure, I had to do a second placement over the summer after graduation, or excuse me, at the end of the school year because I think I was there. I think I was in there for 2 or 3 months, 2 months maybe at the end of the year. I can't remember how we fit it in, but it was still during the school year. And then I had to continue classes all that summer after graduation. But that was at St. Matthew's Catholic School on the northeast side. And very fortunately, I got to go with one of my peers from Marion, who I'm still very close friends with. So we got to teach across the hall from each other. And we had some really great teachers there that really took us under their wing. And so I taught English there. And at the end of that school year, there were openings for several teachers, and he and I both applied and got hired at that school. So I started in middle school, so it was very fortunate that I had been placed there because it's ultimately where I ended up, getting my first job. So I taught middle school English at St. Matthew's for 2 years. At the end of the second year, my principal and I did not get along. He didn't get along with a lot of people, but the school was in a very interesting transition. They had a very beloved principal, which is why there were so many teaching positions when I started there. But some of the parents didn't like his philosophy and style. It was very, at the time, they were brain-based learning, which was very different. They were it wasn't structured like a desk and rows. It was communal tasks, and you taught the same thing across all areas. So if you're in, your social studies history kind of drove what you did and everything else. So you would read about what you were doing in those history classes, and you would apply the math to, what everything that was happening there. And I guess he there was a conflict with him, so a group of parents brought in their own principal, and after that, so all these teachers that loved him left. That's how we got hired, and so there was a little bit of conflict there. So at the end of my second year, he didn't want me to teach English anymore. He asked me to move over to uh, the computer class, which has always been a skill I've had just naturally. I've never been educated in it or taken any classes. It just come naturally to me. But I decided it was time to move on. I wasn't sure I wanted to stay teaching at that point, mostly because when you start as an early teacher in English anyway, you don't get to pick what classes you teach. You're lowest on the totem pole, so it's the least common, whatever other people don't want to teach. And it ended up being mostly just remedial grammar, which is not a strong suit for me. I am a reader of literature. That is my strong suit in grammar. I'm not a fan of it, so it's hard for me to be passionate about it. And I've always felt like that's not a good fit for teaching. You can tell when your teacher's not passionate about something. So I decided to move on, and I was like, well, I'm going to find a spot that's a better fit for me. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I took a job as an IT help person, an hour south of Indianapolis in Seymour, just to kind of shake things up. I had the summer off. I didn't know what I was going to do because as a teacher, you get paid through the summer. So I was driving down there doing IT work all throughout that summer. But the drive really got to me. I loved the IT work because it was much different than a classroom. But I, driving an hour and 15 minutes every day just kind of wore me out. So towards the end of the summer, I started getting calls for teaching positions at several locations. So I ended up, which makes no sense at all, but I went from driving to Seymour from Indianapolis to taking a job in Kokomo, driving an hour north every day. And that high school was fantastic. I probably would have ended up staying there had it not been for the drive. I bought a house on the west side of Indianapolis, and I didn't want to move to Kokomo, but it was a really great fit for me. I did start as the lowest English teacher there, but there were so many more opportunities to teach fun stuff. I had a wide swath of students I was working with. I think at the time, gosh, I was probably 23, 24, and I had 19-year-olds, so I wasn't that far removed from some of these high school students. So I think they really related to that. I enjoyed working with them, and the school was really great. It was much bigger school than I'd been exposed to than any of my experiences. They'd all been smaller Catholic schools, so this was a big public school. So there was, a staff of 10 English teachers, and they had a pretty good community there. But ultimately, that drive ended my tenure there. I had a parent-teacher night one night, so I was there till like 9 o'clock, and then there was a car accident on the road on the way home, so I didn't get home till 1 in the morning, and I had to get up at 5 to get back up the next day, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I decided, I said, I've done this twice now. It hasn't held my passion long enough to put up for these drives, so I'm going to try to find a job that is more suiting, and it just makes me happy. So I started applying for anything and everything, and it was a struggle. I realized I needed to kind of pad my resume with some other skill set. I just didn't find a great fit anywhere. So I finally found a job that fit kind of my skill set, and that may have been part of my problem. I was looking, at more primarily business-focused things that had no connection to education, kids, or anything I had experience with. So I found a very small nonprofit called Inquisitive Kids. That was like a educational news resource for schools in Marion and surrounding counties. Just kind of a fun magazine that was kind of like a weekly reader, but it was all based on the state standards for each grade level. So every activity was mapped to another state standard, and they were in need of a school liaison. So that was a great fit for me. In fact, the reason I got the interview was that I had listed on my resume that I was a cheerleader at Marion, and my boss who brought me in for the interview, her brother was a cheerleader. So you never know. That's my best advice. Don't hesitate to put anything and everything on that resume that you have experience with, because it was that little thing that got me the interview. And my own experience with hiring too is very similar to that. It's like, oh, you need that one little piece of connection that sets you apart from the thousands of other pieces of paper in the pile. Or now it's all digital, so I guess whatever it is. So I worked there for 2 years, meeting with teachers and classrooms, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that job because it was the joy of working with a classroom and teachers and kids without any of the politics that went into the classroom, where you had this rigid structure where you weren't free to teach what you wanted and be passionate about it. So I just got to go into classrooms all over the place and be fun and have fun with the kids, and I really enjoyed it. But at the same time, very long, windy story here, so I'll never shut up unless you stop me. But I was dating my current wife who's the same one. Actually, today's our 15th anniversary. She's also a Marian graduate, who I met in.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Um, she was working at a law firm, and I met her boss at a Christmas party, and we just kind of hit it off. And I think shortly after that, he in fact offered me a job. I think at that point, but I was still enjoying, my time at Inquisitive Kids. So a year later, fast forward a year later, the small little nonprofit, wasn't going so well, and it didn't look like they were going to be around for much longer. So I went back to my wife and asked her, say, hey, he had offered me that job. Do you think he's still interested? And so he called me back in. We sat down and had an interview, and he literally hired me with no skill set frame in mind. He said, I like your personality. You're outgoing. You can communicate. We'll find a job for you. So he hired me without a job description. Just that. I guess my interview was at that Christmas party, just being outgoing. Able to communicate in a large group of people, and that I had learned basically at Marian, that just that willingness to smile at everybody, say hello, and do that. And so it was it's the job I have now. I've been here 14 years, and I started as no title. My first day I painted offices. The third day I think we had a blizzard. It was 2007, so the office was closed for 3 days. When we came back, the snow had melted and then refrozen over the back of the building. So I spent that day chipping ice off a building. So, I was determined to, whatever the job needed to be done, I was going to do it. It was a small company at the time. I think I was the 12th employee. So I kind of just made myself a groove of, here's what I can do, and I'll tackle anything. So I started as right out of the gate, I started taking new calls, with no experience on how to do that. Just, he was like, go ahead, do it. He's like, the best advice that he ever gave me. It's like, you feel like you don't know what you're doing or have no experience, but these people calling in have even less than you. So you may know 10% of what you're talking about, but they know zero. So that your job is to really take the burden off of them and say, hey, I don't know the answer, but I will find it out. And that really was key for me in that job. So that started, I kind of did that for a couple of years, working with clients, taking new calls. But my IT background kind of came back up of just, being able to figure things out and work with IT. So as those needs arose, it was a small business. Everybody did everything. If there was a leak, everybody's on deck to get a mop and do those kind of things. So as we had IT needs, we had an IT guy on contract, but it took him 3 or 4 days to get stuff done. So I just raised my hand and said, I'm happy to try this. Let me take a look. So I've kind of grown that into where I am now, which is I'm the director of IT for our company. But I also handle all the internet marketing, which goes back to my English degree, is a ton of writing and researching and really figuring out. So every time I talk to somebody about my career path, it is really interesting because you don't see a lot of IT and then a creative area like internet marketing. So
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting combination. I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on what your typical day looks like, what you might be working on. I know that typical day is a challenge
there
to
isn't
capture.
one. I mean, it's
Um,
and obviously this pandemic has been changing for that as well. I mean, we moved to an office of 75 people. We went in a period of 2 weeks to everybody working at home, which we weren't set up for. And so I think it is never changing. It is, well, let's just start here. It's fast paced. There's no same day. So we work in personal injury law and social security disability law. So we are a client facing organization. The phone rings nonstop. That's what we do. We answer the phone and try to solve problems. So number one, we have to be able to, reach these clients and help them. So my primary job is getting those clients to find us in a very challenging, very competitive, market. I'm sure if you've turned a TV on or driven around and seen a billboard, there's a thousand personal injury attorneys in this city, and it's very competitive. So you have to set yourself apart from them, and we've done that with our internet marketing. My cat's visiting here. I'm sorry. This is Meower. Say hello.
Oh, hi.
So my day is kind of broken up between two major things. Number one, from the IT side, what fire is burning? What issues? I mean, we continue to grow in an environment where there are so many threats from an IT perspective. I mean, most of my morning, I start about 7 a.m. and it is just putting out all the fires till about 9 or 10 for the day so that everybody else can do their jobs. You know, making sure that all the computers are up, the servers are working, everybody has connectivity, especially when they're working at home. You know, that's presented its own challenges. So we went from 75 employees and 75 systems to now I've got to support all those desktop systems in the office, but then also their systems at home and navigating their IT infrastructure as well. At the same time, keeping us safe from outside threats. So it has been a stressful year. My workday's gone from about a 9-hour day to about 12-hour day every day, 7 to 7 every day. I've got to make sure if our employees are on, that's my focus has become making the phone ring to making sure our employees can do their jobs. So it is extremely chaotic, every day. Fun, like I told you at the beginning of this, I do well when I'm overwhelmed with tasks. If I think I was just in straight IT and I was only doing IT things, I don't think I would succeed because there would be lulls in product projects and and the other side of it is the creativity side that why I was interested in English in the first place is I like to write, I like to read, I like to continue educating. So I get to do a lot of fun stuff when I'm done with all my IT stuff, which is never done. But when I clear that, that's why I start at 7 with that stuff. Usually by about 10 or so, I'm able to look at my more longer term projects. What new web videos do we need to shoot with our attorneys? We got to write scripts for them. What new articles are out there? How many times? We have to be very creative and think about how many different ways can I say if you're injured in an accident, call an attorney, and it can't just be that because you can only say that really once. So it's all these different scenarios of we've taken an educational approach rather than an in-your-face fear approach. My philosophy has always been you give your information away. People will learn. It's like people will learn that this is something that's kind of over their head and they should get help. Give them the answers that they're looking for and they'll quickly learn. I should get some assistance with this. It's a lot like plumbing. If your toilet's overflowing, right away that you probably can stop the water, but there's a bigger problem that you need to fix, and that's kind of where our approach is with our internet marketing and our the information that we put out there. Answer their problems, take their fears away, and say, hey, we're happy to help you with this. So I have a team. I have a full-time writer, social media person, and then I also have a video graphics guy. We meet every day. It's been tough too because we're doing it from home. Usually the three of us are right around each other, and it's constant, back and forth about what are we doing this. Hey, we like this. Creativity dies in isolation. So with all these people at home, it's really hard to get these things done. So we meet every day for about an hour and just kind of have these brainstorming, where are we going? We have a calendar of what we want to accomplish, but it's just that the best work we do is in those conversations where we're just kind of brainstorming and kicking ideas around. If that makes sense at all.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. And I'm glad that you're able to have time with your team to meet every day because I think that that's been essential, like for working remote, is constant contact with your team because it's easy to just to be like, oh, I don't want to bother them with an email or something. We're all getting so many anyway. Like it's just good to touch base, even if it's informally. So I think that that's good. I like what you said. Isolation is where creativity goes to die.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's very easy to convince yourself that you're having a bad idea and it's not good, but you need that input from your team, just that encouragement to say, yeah, that could work. I like that. Otherwise, if I do it, I'm like, nah, it's dumb. I'm not going to do that.
Oh, I love it. I wanted to ask, how have you seen the strengths of a liberal arts degree in the workforce as you've worked in these different industries?
I think, I don't know what I would have done without that, the background I got at Marion. I mean, everybody always says, uh, you know, they might complain about some of the classes they have to take, but man, I loved it. I loved having that wide breadth of experience. That it wasn't just focus on, here's your subject matter, here's this. I had to take all those classes, like the art, the music, just I think that makes you a well-rounded person, which for me gives you a lot more to talk about just in general public. And we're probably the key to getting where I have been is just, I like to learn, and that teaching background into me, I like to educate. So, I'm a really big person on, did you know that? Or, have you heard this? Like, so I think that background, really fit my personality and really shaped my personality just to kind of be uh, just that well-rounded person that I can talk to anybody. I don't care what the subject matter is. I have a pretty good, um, you know, feel for anything that we're talking about, from, sports to classical art.
All right, and last, I wanted to ask you, what career advice would you give to current students at Marian University?
Oh, wow. Hit up Marion grads. I mean, don't stop. I mean, I tell you, I mean, uh, a lot of the good advice I've gotten from, um, in my career has been from here. I was really involved in the alumni association my first 10 years out of college. So I really liked, reaching out and talking to those students. But um, I think we have a connection. You have, if you went to Marion, you know what that's like. And anytime I see a Marion resume, I'm bringing them in for an interview. I just am. So I think use those connections. You do have a common experience, and it's in Indianapolis. It's not rare to see a Marion grad, but in the world in general, I think if you see, if you're not in Indiana, if you see Marion, on somebody's resume, you're like, you're going to talk to that person just because it's that connection. But I think networking is also very key. Make those connections, talk to everybody you can, and don't. Um, I, I think one other big piece of advice that I've really learned from my boss, John Hensley, and why he's successful is, it's something I've struggled with because I like to be that educator, that person, but his real strength is going into a room and not trying to show off your knowledge, but pretending to be the dumbest person in the room. Because what I've really learned in watching him is that people like to talk like me, and if you ask me a couple questions, they will just go on and on and on about experience, and you can just learn so much from other people by just asking good questions and being a good listener, and like, tell me about that, explain about that. So I've really tried to model that, and I think it's a really great skill set to have. Is you don't need to show off and show everything you're great at. You're going to learn so much more by asking good questions and putting the other person in the conversation as the focus, just because you might learn some very valuable things that you might not have gotten otherwise.
I appreciate that advice, especially for others who, as you said, you started out, maybe approaching and be a little bit shy about networking, but that is the number one way to find a job. So, like, I just want to say to anybody watching this, people love to talk about themselves and their passions. So, like, you just need a few good thought-provoking questions, or not even thought-provoking ones, like, oh, just ask like the how, like, oh, how do you do that? Or why would, why did you choose this path anyway? And people just love to talk about themselves. So
It is,
they'll
something.
remember that, especially if you go to apply for a job at their organization, they'll want to work with somebody who cares about what their passion is 100%.
It's been a long time since I've interviewed anywhere, but I can tell you, we interview a lot of people. We are constantly hiring and growing, and I will tell you the three biggest things that make an impact for us. Overdress for the interview. It means a big, I don't know if it means anything elsewhere, but we have people who come, it's fine if you don't have a suit, fine. but don't show up in business casual like you would for the thing. What is the nicest thing you have? Come in that interview. Obviously come early, but not too early. We have people come an hour early. That's a little crazy,
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have to get that like
yeah.
15
15
minutes
minutes is a
exactly.
good window, but don't be late. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
one great piece of advice I always learned was on time or early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. So I kind of try to live by that thing. And the third biggest thing, a handwritten thank you note for the opportunity. I mean, it is the difference between when you're stuck on a candidate, you don't know, that is it for us. It's like, and it could be completely fake, and we've been wrong on that, but it makes the biggest difference in the world. Just that extra little personal touch of, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed meeting you, and you can keep them. I tell you that every interview, pre-write them, have them in your pocket, and you drop them in the mail the second you walk out of the office. It makes a huge impact. And I guess really the fourth biggest thing too is ask a lot of questions. It's so tough. Like you said, when you're trying to interview somebody, you don't care what they're saying. You're just trying to figure out who you are as a person. So when they come back at you with questions about the organization, what your passions are, what we're trying to figure out, I don't care what skills you have. You're already in the door. That's what got you in the door, your resume. I want to know, are you going to fit in with my office? Are you going to fit our culture? Are you a good person? Are you going to do what you say you do? So I think that is our challenge to figure out, how will you fit into our office? What can you do, and how are you going to elevate us as an organization? So when we're interviewing somebody and they don't have any questions, and they're giving us yes or no answers, that's tough. You want that open, easy dialogue of, I could talk to this person every day because I'm going to.
Absolutely. Thank you for that advice. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. And for any student who's nervous about interviewing, first of all, I understand. I too used to have a fight or flight response to an interview situation, and the exchange can do mock interviews with you. We do have a professional clothing closet, so you can come to our Dress to Impress closet if you're looking for clothes. And we even have some thank you cards if you don't have any. So I want to reinforce everything that Ryan said. That's best practices in interviewing. So excellent
And
advice there. Thank you.
practice with your family. Make them put you through the ringer. I mean, we don't ask any of those trick questions about, interview. What if you were a plant? What plant would you be? We don't
Oh,
do
I
any of
hate
that stuff.
those. Those are the
There,
worst.
there's no right answer, but it's all the same thing. You're just trying. Who are you as a person? And I think I'm terrible. Like, I sweat profusely. Like, I just get so nervous, and then I ramble, and I never shut up. So that's my problem too, is that I really have to think about asking good questions about, asking the interviewer, why do you do what you do? Man, I tell you what, my boss loves to hear that. He wants to tell people what his passion is and why we do what we do. That's the best question, I would tell you to ask every interview. Why does this company exist, and why do you keep existing? What is your purpose?
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and for offering this invaluable advice to current students and future students. So thanks so much for your time today,
It's always,
and for sharing your story, because I think that it's important to realize that people go in unexpected directions and apply their strengths in new ways and continue evolving and continue learning after college. I think that that's the best career advice that I've ever received is if you're not being challenged and if you're not stimulated and challenged to do your best, then find something different. And I'm very inspired by how you've been able to do that and find new ways to be involved, from painting and snow removal to now
it's our
IT.
it's our mantra at the office. My boss says it all the time. If you're not growing, you're dying. So,
Yeah.
don't ever stop.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Ryan.